Alpha sports card prices about to fall off a cliff.
Please, no! No! No!
New card ladder data out for the month of May shows $676 million in online sales.
What?
With eBay dominating at about 462 million. Keep in mind, when we go back to the COVID boom, this number at 676 is almost triple the COVID boom numbers. Can you believe it?
As darkness falls, our imaginations take flight.
Also keep in mind with the 676 million, that doesn't even take into account whatnot sales.
I know what this is, guys. One-on-one Nebula rookie.
We need to set a max bid, bro.
Guys, we don't know what this is, guys.
You're out there, guys. Set a max bid. This is a one-of-one Nebula rookie of Victor. That's it. 10 seconds.
Max bids! 10 seconds, guys. Go, chat.
That's it.
10 seconds, guys. Go, chat.
59.
Set a max bid to Nebula, guys. We don't know what this is.
4 seconds.
So rookie. We don't know what this is. Rookie.
2.
Guys, rookie. Rookie. Jacks on the first time buy. Fuck, no matter what we do today, guys. It's just no matter what we do. Just trolls. Just no matter what we do.
Now, I know Fanatics and eBay are listed here. I don't believe, though, that eBay live sales and Fanatics live sales are in these numbers. I think it's just auction numbers. Fanatics collect, of course, eBay auctions. I don't think it includes all that stuff. So think about that for a second. Then think about also the sales at shows every weekend. I mean, we're probably talking in the neighborhood of $5 to $10 billion a month, realistically, when taking into account private sales, show sales, in-person stuff, all the other sources outside of what's being tracked. Guys, we are in the ultimate trading card boom time. Could you have imagined this in 1990 when we were all kids growing up?
If you're an older person, kids just like collect them because of the money. They go, whoa, if we get this card, I trade my collection for a 52 mantle because it's just worth so much. But I like it for the spirit of collecting and just because it's worth a lot of money. I think the older cards are also better than the newer cards. Those cards back then, because they're just better. There's limited quantities and things like that.
Kids today aren't really into old-time baseball, which is a shame. You know, they don't know who Joe DiMaggio was or who Ty Cobb was. They know who, like, Pete Rose is or Don Manley.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Grading numbers just came out from GemRate. Ryan over at GemRate doing the Lord's work put out the grading numbers for May. 2.07 million cards in total for PSA has made them shut down value submissions for the time being. Hopefully short-lived. They've got it estimated at 4 months, I believe. Speaking of PSA, friends, with the prices going up, make sure to get $25 off that first submission at PSA with the SCD25 code at the shipping and billing screen. Tell a friend, tell all your friends, SCD25 code for $25 off. CGC did 641,000. Their turnaround times have gone up here recently. Beckett surging. I just had a submission with them where I've got the grading is done. And so hopefully I know the grades here soon for those. I'm excited. For the new Beckett labels, 145,000 cards in the month of May. That is a massive surge for Beckett. Remember the years, literally the years, where they were sitting at about 50,000 cards a month. Now they're about triple that. Tag, 52,000 cards in May. They had to shut down really most of their submission options outside of one pretty expensive one. SGC at 48,000 cards, mainly grading vintage cards these days. New product selling out. Can't keep it. Topps Chrome is back for football and basketball. It's been an absolutely massive surge as we've moved here into 2026. Honestly, I thought 2024 and 5 were surging, and then we get into 2026. Absolutely unbelievable. So how do you think this is going to end? Are we hitting a wall? Are we going to see a collapse in prices or maybe just a slight correction? Do you think there's going to be pockets? Are the GOATs overpriced? You know, is it that so much money has been put into Jordan and Mantle and Ruth and Tom Brady? Is that sustainable, or is that the way that it should have been all along? When we go back to the COVID boom, it was a lot of NBA prospecting. Tons of it was on NBA prospecting. People putting a lot of money into, I think I had Mitchell Robinson rookie cards, different parallels that were selling for crazy money. Now we have more money, more participation, but also more focus. And that focus has been around GOATs. The Michael Jordan market, man, I actually have buddies. I have quite a few buddies that are like, should I just sell everything? Should I just sell everything and then just get back in when maybe the prices are lower? That's the thing that I think is the big question mark. is trying to figure out, and look, we had the same issue going back to 2020 and 2021. What inning are we in? That's always a thought with all this stuff. You know, do I sell now? Do I take money off the table, or do I wait? Do I wait longer? And in the case of 2021, as we went into 2 and 2023, it was best to sell at the high. We didn't know it at the time, but it was best to sell pretty much everything probably at the end of 2021 in terms of sports cards. So let me know your strategy. I'm always interested, whether it's vintage, modern, 90s inserts, whatever it is that you collect. On the sports card side, are you selling it all off, or are you like, you know what, I'm going to ride this out. I don't need any money. I like collecting cards. I am just going to let this thing ride, enjoy the show. As you might have guessed, other collectible spaces have gone absolutely bonkers. One of them being, for all the 80s, 90s nostalgia buffs like myself out there, I know there's a lot of you, graded action figures or just vintage action figures still on card that are still in the original box. I recently bought, look, I'm going nuts over the Motu movie, the Masters of the Universe movie that's coming out this week. I'm going to see it on Thursday evening, one of these kind of pre-release type things. They have showings on Wednesday and Thursday night, and then they've also got, of course, Friday. I'm going on Thursday night with a few of our family friends. And I recently purchased through Hakes Auctions, channel partner and sponsor of this video, Hakes Auctions, Savage He-Man. Only about 5,000 to 10,000 of these were ever created. That's what the believed print run is. And that is low when you consider how many millions of action figures were sold for He-Man in the 1980s. This is the one. This is a big grail for He-Man, Masters of the Universe collectors. I'm excited to add it. I've also got a sealed Castle Grayskull that I got last year. So I've got kind of those big items. I've got one more big item on the He-Man Motu side that I want to add, but was excited to add this one. I was fortunate enough to sit down with Hakes GM Kelly to talk through a huge auction that they have that's ending tomorrow night at time of recording. This is going to end on Wednesday evening. So this is Tuesday when this is going to come out. Wednesday evening, huge G.I. Joe collection. Guys, if you're my age, you remember G.I. Joe, or a little bit older than me. G.I. Joe was everything, the huge battleships, all the different vehicles, all the different action figures. Well, Hakes Auctions has a huge G.I. Joe auction that is set to end here tomorrow night. We all have passions for different things, collecting different things. Check out the G.I. Joe stuff. It might bring back some nostalgic memories from your childhood. All right, friends, let's turn the camera around and we'll have a conversation with Kelly over at Hakes. Welcome back, friends. We've got Kelly GM from Hakes Auctions is back to talk about the amazing G.I. Joe action figure auction that is going on right now. We're recording. We've got about a week left here on the G.I. Joe auction. And first off, how are things going, man? You've had a busy, I feel like 2026 has been a busy one for you guys. What do you have coming up? We talked about.
It's been busy. We're in our like 6th or 7th auction now. We have Master of the Universe auction running. I think it just ended, and we have a G.I. Joe auction, as you know, and we have a Jeff Jacob Part 5 is in June.
I thought this was done. Wow.
And he's not that he has Part 5 and a political and historical auction in June running at the same time, as well as a July pop culture and comic art auction, which has an amazing section of comic art that came in, as well as comic books and Star Wars and action figures and that as well. And then leading into a one-owner collection of comic books and comic art in October. And then there's much more after that. There may even be a Star Wars Power of the Force auction with all Power of the Force items, which I'm trying to, as we spoke about before, I'm trying to do more themed auctions to focus on certain toy lines, or even with Star Wars, you can even get into sub toy lines, like I just said, like with Power of the Force. It can get pretty meta pretty quick. So, which we're always excited about focusing on certain collecting categories.
I think it's smart because there are just collector bases for each of these things. So if you're getting the word out that there's, G.I. Joe, or it's Masters of the Universe, or if it's Star Wars or whatever, then it really, people can lock in on, all right, here's all the different items. What do I need? I think it's really smart.
I think we just recently had a prototype auction, which was a success, where everything was an action figure prototype. I think it just makes it helps people understand that everything in this auction is going to be this. If you like this, or if you even think you like this, you should check it out. And it always brings out some rarities. It did with all these themed auctions. If you promote it well, people will give you some interesting things. And there's some interesting things in this GI Joe auction that we'll talk about here in a second they're very exciting. That yeah, as you see right there, that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
that Defiant. We think we had to weigh it. In the AFA case is like 150 pounds or 108. I forget. It's over 100 pounds. I know. I've had to move it a couple times.
It's crazy
Carefully.
how they came up with this. Like, you know, when they were creating these toys, they had to have been like, my God, this thing is massive. You know, I mean, they were like, go big or go home on some of this stuff.
I just think I imagine the boardroom meeting, which every toy or whatever, if there was a boardroom meeting or if it was in a dark basement somewhere, they said, "How big can we go?" And
Mhm.
eventually, you had the GI Joe flag, and you had this, and some other large sets, and they're like, "Well, maybe we can go bigger." And here it is. This thing is massive and incredible. Just factory steel examples rarely come up, um, especially in this grade.
Yeah.
There are I don't know how many are above this. There aren't that many that are over an 80. This is fresh to market. We had it graded by AFA, and couldn't say more about how impressively awesome this is in person. If you've ever wanted to own one, or if you just want to see one, I mean, this really is just an incredible piece.
I think that that's really the big thing you nailed is, you know, you have like the aircraft carrier and you have this, like the Defiant is one of those where you might have seen it in stores and you might, as a kid, you might have been like, oh my gosh, I have to have it. But most kids didn't have it. So I think that there's also probably this kind of thought of, you know, for all the G.I. Joe nostalgia folks out there, and there's a lot of them that buy the action figures. This is kind of one of those things that it's kind of like the Gray Skull, you know, that I have for on the He-Man side, but even more so than that because they had so many different vehicles and different things, more so than Motu did for sure. But yeah, the fact that yeah, the USS Flag is kind of that big one, that the aircraft carrier, and then the Defiant falls definitely into that bucket of like kids just never had the opportunity to get. The parents weren't going to buy it for them, you know, or you know, it was just too big. And so, yeah, I'm looking at the grading. There's only 13 of these that have ever been graded by AFA. There's only 4 examples that are AFA grade. Oh, there's 4 higher than the
There's
AFA.
4 as there's 4 as this grade, and then 4 higher, and that's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
it's crazy.
That it is really is wild.
Oh, and it's
How
also, and they also with AFA and with CAS too when they grade, but they put an acrylic case around this thing, so you've got
oh yeah,
this
that's
massive.
what I mean. It is
Yeah.
over 100 pounds. It is a massive piece of acrylic, and I mean when you grade something, you have to preserve the grade so that it doesn't change. And in doing that, just like with sports cards or comics or coins or other things, you have to put it in acrylic. And that's just how it is. And it as massive as it is, it's worth it for this piece. It is a centerpiece to any high-end investor grade GI Joe collection or action figure collection. Um, yeah, that is a wild thing. It's the first we were able to offer as sealed, which is very wild.
It's cool. Yeah, and it's going to be popular. I think this one is going to do really well. I did sort the auction just by highest price first just to kind of get a feel for some of the bigger items. And this one, it's not a vehicle. A lot of the bigger items are vehicles, but no, this is a Snake Eyes. It looks like an early copy.
It is. Nineback is an early release. Now to get into what was the true first release could take up the entire episode that we're doing because there are different variations within variations, but Nineback is the first release. Then there was an 11 back, and then so on and so forth. But this 9-back straight arm is a good example of a very, very early release. And to have one as an AFA 90 is just wild. So if you're not familiar with the Russell Branton collection, which in the first paragraph we mentioned him at the end, Russell Branton came to us, and in 2015-16, we took on his collection of Star Wars action figures, which really helped shape Hakes into what we're selling now. And we've been taking action figures this seriously since then. And now he's come back to us with his GI Joe collection, which is nothing. You'll see more coming up after this, where he had an incredible eye for grade, high grade, just had to be the highest grade, and this is just a wild piece.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, because I noticed when I was looking at some of the GI Joe listings, they're all, or a lot of them, Russell Branton collection. So I assume like this guy's obviously a serious collector, but not
Yes.
even just that. When I look at the entire auction, I think the Motu auction had like 80 items or so, and this is like 4 pages, and I've got it at 100 items per.
Yeah, it's
So
like 330, 340 pieces, I think, something like that. It's a lot.
yeah, we're
It's a
talking
lot.
about a massive collection.
Yeah, and this is a good portion of it's his. Then some other things belong to other people. This is his unheard of grade. 90 single highest graded on this. This is an unheard of, just incredible high grade on this.
Now,
Couldn't say that enough. Just a incredible toy, and yeah, very very high grade.
do you happen to know if he found these kind of, out in the wild, like over time, or was this something like he held on to these from the 90s or something like, what, like 20, 30 years
He
ago?
was collecting in the early 2000s.
Okay.
I believe buying some raw, some graded at the time. So I don't have the full story of where these all came from, but I know that he was always had an eye for high grade. So a lot of what you're going to see is, I believe that's also the SMS. These manimals are really interesting and were unproduced. So these are technically prototypes on the card.
I was going to say, I've never heard of these until this
Yeah,
auction.
these were going to be made, so they got this close to release, where these are their production quality, but they were never actually mass produced. So these are all prototype, unproduced pieces where there are only a few examples known of each.
Wow.
So only 2 examples in AFA 8 higher. So there only 10 examples total of this figure have been graded. So they, however many they made in the pre-production process, were made, and then they were out there. But yeah, very very rare and do not come up. First time we've ever actually offered any minimals is in this auction, and we have 2 of them.
Yeah, it's like, how did these even how did he get a hold of something like this?
Yeah, this is from a different collection. This isn't
okay.
Russell. So, but this was. I mean, if you search hard enough, I believe there were Toy Scout ads back in the 90s, and I believe this came from that at that time, if I'm not mistaken, on these, which goes back to an early time of buying toys in Toy Scout. And again, another unheard of grade on this.
Yeah, I've never even seen these. When you look at kind of like the box, this is obviously a different style box and everything for the Battle Armor Snake series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another piece from Russell. Again, if it's high grade in this auction, chances are it was from him. And single highest grade example is a lot of his collection. And yeah, it's a wild grade for sure.
Man, this is wild. Do you know if he did he ever share or anything, like he's looking to get into some, a different collecting category, or was it kind of more of like,
I know that he may have gotten back into some things he's already sold, so he just moves things as it happens. That's just so I think he might be getting in some other toy categories or other collecting categories, but
Yeah, I just pulled up the Scarlet. I feel like Scarlet is one of those that is a little bit more rare of a figure, because you guys have had, I think we looked at this one, or going back maybe on an auction going back a few months ago, and there was another Scarlet. I don't think her stuff really pops up that much. It doesn't seem like.
not as much, especially the straight arm, which is another early variation. They really don't. People love the card back art is great. She's great. So yeah, it's another piece in a high grade. You're gonna keep hearing me say that, because his collection is just wild.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just tons and tons of vehicles. There's also, yeah, some really interesting kind of like GI Joe listen and fun. So just kind of like these early types of toys
Yeah.
that maybe you just forgot about, but collectors can be like, oh my gosh, I remember this, when I was a kid, or whatever. This is really neat.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that the the cassette tape and the action figure all at once,
Yeah.
but that was only in single highest grade example. Pretty wild.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
the uncut crankcase, I believe, is right there. Where
oh, did I miss
if
it?
you
Oh,
see
yes.
that,
Yeah.
so those would have gone in the ship, like in with the vehicle. And this is basically before they're all perforated to be ripped off, but it was never done, so it just exists as it is, which is pretty wild.
Yeah, it's just like a piece of GI Joe history,
Yeah, it's the
and I
same as it's very similar to an uncut card sheet or something like
yeah.
that, where it just never made to that point, and there you have it. It's just another unique opportunity to have something that maybe you won't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, and it says here only 3 examples in total have ever been graded by AFA. So again, it's just kind of like, yes, they mass produced the toys, but how many toys survived? How many toys survived in box? How many toys survived in good condition? And then you have these kind of unique items that you just won't see anywhere else. I mean, this is really cool. All right, Kelly. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap up here. We've got about 7 days left on GI Joe auction as well. This one looks to be popping off like usual over at Hakes. I mean, graded action figures, and also not necessarily graded, but ungraded copies of card back action figures are really
There's ungraded, graded, high grade, investor grade. There's entry level pieces, all kinds.
Yeah, we touched on a lot of the kind of the more expensive pieces, but you guys do have it all the way going down to I think starting bids at $100, to where you can get some really cool items that don't break the bank.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, man. Well, thank you again. We'll be back on here hopefully for, I know you said you got another stack of Motu and other these kind of cool little.
There's all kinds of things happening, probably even as we were speaking. So I'll have to check that out. But yeah, there's always things going on, and I'll be back.
Love it. All right, man. Well, hey, have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.
Cool. Thanks.